Hey friends, Lucian here with the Bullish Bears team. Wanted to make this video on the long-legged doji pattern. I'm going to show you the definition of, or read to you the definition of a long-legged doji. Then I'm going to show you some real-world examples. So Investopedia.com, really helpful resource we like to use. They simplify things and then they give good examples. And except for on the long-legged doji one, they don't have a picture of it, but that's okay. I'll show you several. Long-legged doji, a type of candlestick formation where the opening and closing prices are nearly equal despite a lot of price movement throughout the trading day. This candlestick is often used to signal indecision about the future direction of the underlying asset. So very similar to a doji, just longer upper shadows and lower shadows. So it's just longer legged doji. So again, it's the same thing when you're looking at a doji. It's just going to be a little bit more enhanced. So you'll see right here, here's a chart of NEE. You'll see here's a doji, longer upper and lower shadows, right? So it's a sign of indecision. Closing price is the same as it's going up. Now you got to see in relation to what you're seeing here, why is this happening? Well, it's not any coincidence that this long-legged doji is happening smack dab right in the middle of very important moving average lines. No coincidence. So again, it's important to learn candlesticks first so that when you layer on these moving average lines, they're going to make more sense. And as you can see right here, it almost touched the 200 SMA. It touched the 20 EMA and it closed right below the 9 EMA. Indecision. So obviously you didn't know before this happened if the stock was going to continue upwards or whether it was going to reverse and fall downwards. This is a long-legged doji. Let's look at several other examples. NLSN. So sometimes you'll see it. Again, doesn't mean when you see it that the reversal is going to happen right away. It doesn't mean that a stock can't continue in the same direction, but it is a big warning sign of a potential reversal. So you can see this up here, NLSN, stock was in an uptrend, fell here, bearish. You can see this long-legged doji here. So when you look at this, again, you don't know if it's going to go up or down, right? You don't know if it was going to, you don't know that this is going to happen here. But what you do know is, look at this, smack dab right in the middle of the moving average lines again, right between the 9 EMA and the 50 SMA. Sign of indecision. Very perfect looking long-legged doji. And then obviously, as you can see, what happened, the price continued downwards after that. MGM. Where is that one? Over here. We'll go. You'll start to see these patterns like all over the place when trading. There's, again, maybe, 20 or 30 different kind of candlesticks and patterns. And then once you start to see them, they all kind of make sense after a while. Some of them are just different variations of each other. So I'll show you. I can see on this chart, I'll show you in a second here. You'll see very, long-legged doji. So here it is, price, bear flag, bear flag. Now you can see right here, big sign of indecision over here. But you can also see, and then you can see, this big sign of indecision. You don't know what's gonna happen. Obviously, you can see what happened over here. Got a little bit, trading sideways, indecision, but price moved back to the moving average lines, right? You can see it's no coincidence as well when you look at other indicators. When price starts to get oversold or overbought, many a times you'll see dojis or long-legged dojis or spinning tops. Those signs of indecision, you can see right here, price is starting to get oversold. Bears trying to push it down, and the bulls said, nope, here we go, let's push it back up. Sign of indecision. So we try to tell people, again, don't get bogged down on what is a long-legged doji compared to a regular doji, because it's all kind of telling the same similar story, indecision, right? So if you cut it off, like let's look over here. Here is a doji. So you can say, oh, is that a doji? Is it a long-legged doji? Don't worry about it. It's still a doji. And you can see it's happening right around moving average lines. So if it's not like long enough, the upper shadows or lower shadows, don't get worried. You can see over here, here's another kind of one that you can see over here, a bigger, it's a bigger real body than over here. Again, still a sign of a doji. You can see up here a couple of them. This is a doji, this is a doji, so you can say, well, is that a long-legged doji or a doji? Don't get caught up in the minutia of it. It's still a doji. Why is it happening? It's bouncing off the moving average lines. It's not always going to happen when it's bouncing off of moving average lines, but you'll see many times around moving average lines or when a price is overextended, where it's either overbought or over. But many times you'll see these dojis when a stock is trading sideways as well. GBTC, Bitcoin ETF. Where is that one? Long-legged doji. You can see up here in an uptrend, long-legged doji, followed by another doji, right? You can see over here, you can say, well, is that a long-legged doji or is that a high wave candle? Again, many of these patterns are very similar. So here's a high wave candle. Then you could look at this one and be like, well, what is that? Is that long-legged doji or is it a high wave candle? Well, it's still a sign of indecision. So don't necessarily, again, bog yourself down with worrying exactly what it is. Just understand, what it's actually doing, and it's a sign of indecision. So you can see long-legged doji followed by another doji, kind of long-legged. You can see some other ones in here as well. So, many people will say, well, right here you can say, well, is that a doji? Is it long-legged doji or is it a spinning top? Well, again, don't bog yourself down with it. Just show that it's a sign of indecision. Where is it happening? Right in between or right around moving average line. No coincidence. All right, a couple more examples here. NEM, repetition is the key. You want to look at these over and over and over again until they really start to hit you. So you can see right here, long-legged doji, no coincidence. Now you can say long-legged, or is it a doji? I mean, I want to call it long-legged. You can see over here, long-legged, or it's a doji. Again, who really cares? It's still a doji, Longer upper and lower shadows. You can see them. You'll start to see these things all over the place, over and over and over again. Signs of indecision, and look at why it's happening. Right over here, it's right at a moving average line, indecision. So dojis are signaling indecision. Nike, or, again, indecision, but also potential reversals, right? Where is this one? Okay, over here. So price is falling over here. You can see it's really down, oversold. You can see a long-legged doji come in, right? So you could also look up above here and you could say, well, that's a high wave candle, but it's again, like a very similar in pattern to the long-legged doji is the high wave candle. Now that someone could say, well, the real body's not big enough in the high wave candle. Maybe it should be bigger. Now, again, we don't want to bog yourself down. Look at what it's happening, why it's happening. This happened. Again, no coincidence, right at the 200 simple moving average. This long-legged doji, no coincidence, it happened when a stock was oversold. You'll see up here, again, another one, long-legged doji up here. You'll see these patterns all over the place. Doji, spinning tops, long-legged doji, high wave candles. They all start to look familiar or similar after a while, but just again, look at patterns within the patterns and why it's doing what it's doing. Look at one more here, NOC, N-O-C. Let's go over here, and right here, price is falling, right? And then you see a long-legged doji over here. This one wasn't oversold. It's kind of in the middle, but, it's the bulls coming in, trying to stop it from falling any further. And then you can see, price kind of went upwards after that, kind of went up, traded a little bit sideways, and then smacked off the EMAs a little bit before it went up. So it's just very important when you're looking at all patterns, look at the candlestick, try to understand what it's doing in the overall scheme of things. Watch if the candlestick, especially, long-legged dojis or dojis in general, are happening near moving average lines or far away from moving average lines, like up in this area, right? When a stock's overbought or when it starts to get oversold, because price naturally wants to gravitate back to moving average lines. That's why you'll always see the constant moving back and forth in the stock market, right? So traders like to take profit when they're making money and a stock's overextended. And then buyers like to come back in many times when stocks get oversold to buy low and ideally sell high. So this is basically just several different examples of the long-legged doji. Obviously, again, take our course on our website.